The moment I wrapped my arms around her, 11 pulse lances snapped up in one sharp motion, aimed straight at my chest, and I understood that I had exactly 2 seconds left to live if she did not say something fast. My name is Daniel Foster, and I was not supposed to be anywhere near that corridor. I worked as a maintenance technician on Threshold Station, the massive orbital platform where humanity was hosting its very first alien delegation. The Vondari matriarchy had arrived 6 weeks earlier, tall insect-like beings with dark armored skin and voices that clicked before the translator boxes turned their words into something we could understand. Their queen, a being called Salith, had come aboard personally to finish a trade agreement that would decide whether Earth stood alone in the galaxy or gained its first real ally. I had been sent to repair a coolant valve near the ceremonial hall, a job that had nothing to do with diplomacy or politics. I was elbow-deep in a wall panel, wrench in hand, thinking about torque settings, when the doors at the end of the corridor slid open without warning. I stood up at the exact wrong second and walked straight into someone tall, warm, and wrapped in heavy robes. Before my mind caught up with what was happening, my arms shot out and caught them, the same reflex that kicks in when you see someone about to fall and you grab them without thinking. By the time my brain understood what my arms had already done, I was hugging the queen of an alien empire in front of her entire honor guard. The guards moved as one unit, weapons rising, boots striking the floor in a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. I felt the heat of the pulse lances, even through the fabric between us. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it might crack a bone. I had read the safety briefings. Every worker on this station had been told the same thing over and over. Never touch the queen. Never approach without an escort. Never make a sudden movement in her presence. I had broken every single rule in under 3 seconds, and now 11 weapons were pointed at a spot just above my heart. Then she laughed. It was not the flat mechanical tone from the translator collar. It came from somewhere low in her chest, a real and startled sound, and it rolled through me because I still had not let go. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to release her slowly and step back, keeping my palms open and visible the way you do when a wild animal has decided not to attack yet. "Stand down," she said, and the translator caught up half a second later. Her voice cut through the corridor sharper than any weapon the guards were holding. The lances lowered, though not all the way, and every guard kept their eyes locked on me like I might explode. I bowed the way we had been trained, bending from the neck, and the words tumbled out of me in a rush. "I am sorry. I did not see you. I was not looking. I did not mean any harm. I swear, I did not mean any harm." She tilted her head at an angle that I would later learn meant curiosity rather than anger. Her eyes were large and dark, almost like polished stone, and they studied me the way you study something you have never seen before and cannot quite explain. "You did not kneel," she said. "You did not run. You caught me so I would not fall on this floor in front of my own soldiers." I opened my mouth to apologize again, but she raised one hand, and the guards straightened as if an invisible string had pulled them upright. "In 6 weeks among your people," she continued, "you are the first one who touched me without fear." I told her the truth, because I could not think of anything clever to say. Where I come from, you do not let someone fall if you can catch them. That is just how we are raised. She made a sound that was somewhere between a chuckle and a sigh, then reached out one long arm and rested it gently on my shoulder, ignoring the strict 2-finger greeting the briefings had taught us. "Your species does not know how to fear correctly," she said. "That may be your downfall, or it may be exactly why we choose to trust you." Then she turned and walked toward the ceremonial hall, robes trailing behind her like dark water, leaving me standing in the corridor with my heart still racing, and 11 guards watching me, as if I had grown a second head. I finished the coolant repair with hands that would not stop shaking. My supervisor, a steady woman named Grace Whitmore, found me 20 minutes later still sitting on the floor of the access corridor, staring at nothing. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said. "I think I just hugged an alien queen by accident," I told her, and I nearly laughed at how insane it sounded out loud. Grace stared at me for a long moment before she started laughing too, the kind of laugh that comes out when something is too strange to be real. Then her face went serious. "Daniel, If the guards did not shoot you, that is either the best luck in the galaxy, or something bigger is happening that we do not understand yet. She was right to be worried. 3 days later, a message arrived on my personal terminal, sent directly from the Vondari delegation, bypassing every layer of station security that should have stopped it. It requested my presence at the treaty signing as a personal witness for the Queen. Not as a translator, not as a technician assigned to keep the equipment running. As a witness, standing beside her, in front of every camera and every diplomat from Earth, and every alien dignitary who would be watching. I nearly refused. I was not a diplomat. I did not know the first thing about politics or protocol beyond the basic rules I had already broken. But refusing an invitation from an alien monarch, one who had just spared my life in a hallway, did not seem like the wise choice either. The days leading up to the signing blurred together in a mix of fittings for a suit that never quite fit right, and endless briefings from station officials who wanted to know exactly what I had said to the Queen, word for word, over and over, as if repeating it enough times would somehow make sense of it. I told them the truth every time. I caught her because she was falling. That was all. There was no secret plan, no clever strategy, just a reflex trained into me since childhood. On the morning of the signing, the ceremonial hall filled with more people than I had ever seen in one place on this station. Human diplomats in dark suits stood on one side, and the Vondari delegation stood on the other, their armored skin catching the light in shifting patterns of deep blue and black. Cameras hovered near the ceiling, broadcasting the event across the entire station and back to Earth. I stood near the edge of the room, trying to disappear into the crowd, when a voice cut through the noise of the gathering. "Daniel Foster," the Queen said, and every head in the room turned toward me at once. "Come stand beside me." My feet moved before my mind agreed to it. I crossed the open floor of the hall, feeling the weight of every eye in the room, and took my place at her left side, exactly where she had told me to stand 3 weeks earlier. The guards who once aimed weapons at me now stood at ease behind us, and for a strange moment, none of it felt real. The signing began, and for a while, everything moved smoothly. Documents projected in light above a stone table, both sides read terms aloud, and translators on both ends confirmed every clause. I understood almost none of the technical language, but I understood the weight of the moment. This was the first treaty between humanity and another starfaring civilization, and somehow I was standing in the middle of it because I had once refused to let someone fall. Then the lights flickered. It happened so fast that most of the room did not notice at first, just a brief dimming, barely a second long. But the Queen's head snapped up immediately, and every guard in the hall shifted their stance, weapons still lowered, but hands ready. "Something is wrong with the power grid." Grace's voice came through my earpiece, tight and urgent. "Daniel, get away from the center of the room." I did not move. I could not with the Queen standing beside me and every camera in the galaxy watching. The lights flickered again, longer this time, and a low hum began building somewhere beneath the floor, a sound I recognized from years of working with the station's power systems. It was the sound of an overload building in the main relay, the one that fed power to nearly a third of the station, including the section we were standing in. "Someone has locked the coolant valves in the lower deck," Grace said, her voice cracking with tension. "The one you fixed 3 days ago. It is being forced open manually, and the relay behind it is about to overheat." My stomach dropped. I knew exactly what that meant. If the relay overheated without proper coolant flow, it would not simply shut down. It would trigger a cascading failure through the entire power grid, and the ceremonial hall, with its heavy equipment and hundreds of people packed inside, sat directly above the relay chamber. I leaned toward the Queen, keeping my voice low. "Your Majesty, there is a serious problem with the station power system. I need to reach the lower deck immediately, or this entire section could lose power in a dangerous way." She studied me for half a second, then turned to her guards and spoke a short command in her own language. 2 guards peeled away from formation and fell in step beside me without hesitation. "Go," she said to me. "Fix what needs fixing. I trust you." I ran. The 2 guards moved faster than I expected, their long legs covering ground in strides that made me work hard just to keep pace. We reached the maintenance lift, and I punched in the access code with fingers that would not stay steady. The lift dropped fast. alarms starting to blare somewhere above us in the station, red warning lights sweeping across every wall panel we passed. Grace's voice kept feeding me information through the earpiece as we descended. The valve controls have been manually overridden from an access panel near Junction 7. Someone did this on purpose, Daniel. This is not an accident. That single sentence hit me harder than the alarms. Someone inside the station had deliberately sabotaged the coolant system during the most important diplomatic event in human history, timed perfectly to strike during the treaty signing, with the Queen and half the planet's leadership standing directly above the danger zone. The lift doors opened onto a corridor thick with steam, the air already growing uncomfortably warm. I could hear the relay ahead of us, a deep mechanical groan that sounded like something being pushed far past its limits. The two guards flanked me without a word, moving through the steam with a calm precision that steadied my own racing pulse. We reached Junction 7, and I saw it immediately. The access panel hanging open, its internal wiring cut and rerouted in a way that made no sense unless someone wanted the coolant valves to fail on purpose. My hands moved on instinct, tracing the wiring back to the source, my mind working faster than it ever had in my life. "Grace, I need eyes on the relay pressure right now," I said. "Climbing fast," she answered. "Daniel, you have maybe 90 seconds before it crosses the failure line." 90 seconds. I had repaired plenty of systems under pressure before, but never with a countdown timer attached to hundreds of lives and the future of an entire treaty between two species. I traced the cut wiring to a small device clipped near the base of the panel, a crude but effective jammer designed to block the automatic safety override. Someone had planned this carefully, not to destroy the station outright, but to create just enough chaos to disrupt the signing. Maybe even to make it look like human incompetence had endangered the Queen's life. I ripped the jammer free, and the panel lights flickered back to life immediately, safety systems reconnecting with a series of soft clicks. I forced the valve controls back into manual mode and began rerouting coolant flow the same way I had 3 days earlier, my hands moving through motions I had practiced 100 times, except now, every second counted in a way it never had before. The groan from the relay deepened, then shifted, the sound changing pitch as coolant finally reached the overheating core. I watched the pressure readout on my wrist display climb toward the danger line, hover there for 2 agonizing seconds, and then begin to fall. "You did it," Grace said, her voice flooding with relief. "Pressure is dropping. The relay is stabilizing." I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding, my legs suddenly feeling weak beneath me. One of the guards placed a steady hand on my shoulder, and though I could not read the expression on his armored face, the gesture felt like gratitude. We climbed back up through the station, alarms shutting off one by one as the power grid stabilized, and by the time we reached the ceremonial hall again, the lights had returned to their normal steady glow. The room had gone quiet, hundreds of people standing frozen, uncertain what had happened, or whether the danger had truly passed. The Queen turned toward me the moment I stepped back into the hall, and something in her posture shifted, tension draining away as she saw me walking toward her, steam still clinging to my clothes, hands stained with grease. "It is resolved, Your Majesty," I said. "Someone tampered with the coolant system on purpose. It has been fixed and reported to station security." A murmur spread through the crowd, diplomats exchanging worried glances, but the Queen raised a hand, and silence fell across the hall instantly. "This human," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room, "has now saved my life twice in the span of a few weeks. First by catching me when I stumbled, and now by preventing whatever this attack intended to accomplish." I felt my face grow hot under the weight of every gaze in the room, but I stood still, unwilling to look away from her. Security teams moved through the hall within minutes, and it did not take long to trace the sabotage back to a disgruntled contractor named Colin Baxter, someone who had lost a major supply contract when the Vondari trade deal was first announced. He believed that disrupting the signing, even endangering lives, might delay or destroy the treaty long enough to save his failing business. He was taken into custody quietly, without further incident, and the investigation confirmed there had been no wider conspiracy, just one desperate man who had badly underestimated the consequences of his actions. The signing resumed less than an hour later. The Queen insisted I remain standing beside her exactly where I had been before, And this time, when the final documents locked into place with a soft chime confirming the treaty was official, the entire hall erupted into applause that echoed off the high ceiling. Afterward, as the crowd slowly filtered out and the guards relaxed their formation for the first time all day, the Queen approached me directly, something she had not done since our first accidental encounter in the corridor. "You keep proving something to me," she said, tilting her head in that same curious angle. "Your kind rushes toward danger instead of away from it, even when fear would be the reasonable choice." "I do not think I was being brave," I told her honestly. "I was just doing my job, the same as fixing that valve the first time we met." She made that low sound again, somewhere between a laugh and a sigh, and this time I recognized it immediately as something close to genuine warmth. "Perhaps that is the most important difference between us," she said. "Where I come from, courage is trained and rehearsed for years before it is ever tested. Among your people, it seems to live quietly inside ordinary lives, waiting for the moment it is needed." I did not know how to respond to that, so I simply nodded, and for a moment we stood there in the emptying hall, an alien queen and a station technician who had accidentally started something neither of us fully understood yet. In the following weeks, the story spread across Earth and beyond, told and retold until it barely resembled what had actually happened in that corridor. Some versions claimed I had planned the encounter as some kind of daring diplomatic gesture. Others insisted I had wrestled an assassin barehanded in the depths of the station. The truth, as always, was far simpler and far less dramatic than the rumors, but the Queen never bothered correcting any of it. She seemed to find something quietly amusing in watching my accidental legend grow larger with each retelling. Grace teased me about it constantly, calling me the man who hugged royalty and lived to tell about it, and I let her, because honestly, there was nothing else to call it either. Months later, when the Vondari matriarchy formally established a permanent embassy on Threshold Station, the Queen requested that I be assigned as part of the technical liaison team working directly with her staff. I accepted without hesitation this time, no accidental collisions required. Looking back now, I still do not fully understand why that single reflex, the instinct to catch someone before they hit the ground, changed the direction of my entire life, and, in some small way, the relationship between two entire species. I was not trying to be a hero. I was not trying to make history. I was just a technician who could not stand the thought of watching someone fall when I had the chance to stop it. The Vondari have a saying now, one that Salith taught me herself, though it does not translate perfectly into our language. Loosely, it means something like this: trust is not built through careful distance and correct behavior. It is built in the space where someone forgets to be careful and chooses to help anyway. I think about that phrase often, especially when I walk past the corridor where it all began, past the same access panel I once knelt beside with a wrench in my hand, thinking about nothing more complicated than torque settings and coolant flow. I never planned to become part of history. I just did not want to see someone fall. And somehow, that turned out to be enough.